Hey, everybody, welcome into Nonsense on Ice. Doug Plagens here with you, and here on this podcast, we're going to talk hockey, and we are going to tie it back to the hobby. So I want to introduce myself. I want to introduce the podcast here, Nonsense on Ice. I want to talk about why it's a great time to have Nonsense on Ice. I want to say thanks to the Sports Cards Nonsense media team, everybody involved. Thanks to Rebecca behind the scenes, doing a great job here. And I want to tell everybody what you can expect as we cruise along here weekly on Nonsense on Ice. Thanks for being here. Thanks for having me along on your collecting journey. And thanks for listening wherever you're tuned in. And you'll be able to find Nonsense on Ice wherever you get your podcasts. Again, I'm Doug Plagens, and I'm a lifelong collector, a lifelong sports card collector. I'll talk about my first pack of cards coming up here in just a moment, but I also hope I can offer a unique perspective. I've worked in pro hockey now for 18 years. I've been the radio voice of the Florida Panthers for 11 seasons now. This is season number 11 for me in South Florida with the Panthers. Obviously, these last couple of years, I've had a chance to call some pretty historic moments, some big time moments, a couple of Stanley Cups, which was an absolute dream come true. But I get to go to every arena each season. I have the great fortune of being able to talk about hockey for a living. And now I'm excited to be able to do it right here with you. And like I said, tie it all back to the hobbies that we love, whether it's sports cards, whether it's autographs, whether it's memorabilia. We are going to get to all of it here on Nonsense on Ice. So why now? Why now for Nonsense on Ice? Well, hockey's growing, everybody. The league is in 32 markets across North America, the National Hockey League, that is. The hobby, it's huge. We're all out there. We're at the shops. We're at the shows. We're shopping online. We're consuming the content. We're doing all that. And we can see that with each passing day, the hobby is continuing to pick up steam. It's continuing to grow. And as hockey grows, especially here in the United States, but obviously huge in Canada, always has been, as the hobby grows, they go hand in hand. It's going to be really exciting to see as things go along. And you look at these last few years in the National Hockey League, the young talent we have in the league right now, the level of young talent, it's as high as it's ever been. Every team has exciting young players. There are a lot of established all-time greats and future Hall of Famers still playing at elite levels. It's a great time to be a fan of the National Hockey League, but it's also a great time to be out buying the cards. I'm buying the cards too. We're all ripping, we're all collecting, we're all getting into breaks, and we're going to talk about all of it right here on Nonsense on Ice. So again, big thanks to all of you for having me along. Thanks to the SCN team for giving me the opportunity here. And I want to talk about my collecting journey a little bit, taking it all the way back. 1989. If you tuned into a recent edition of Sports Cards Nonsense, the flagship podcast, I touched on this story a little bit. So if you've heard it before, bear with me. But 1989, I wanted a pack of baseball cards. My grandma picked me up a pack of Topps Baseball at the grocery store. It was a cello pack. Remember, you could see through it. You could see the top card. You could see the bottom card, the old cello packs. All I remember from that first pack of Topps Baseball was that there were no tigers in the pack. No tigers. That was my reaction. I don't know who was in the pack. I don't know where those cards are. There probably are some surviving in a box at my parents' house mixed in with, who knows what else from back in that era. But all I remember is there were no tigers. Shortly after that, 1990-91 Pro Set Hockey. You remember the blue wrappers, Series 1? The Stanley Cup hologram is still chased to this day out of that incredibly mass-produced product. But those cards had a nice, clean design. I saw them right on the counter at 7-Eleven, right next to the cash register. And my dad bought me a couple of packs of those, and I was hooked from that point forward. My first trip to the National, 1997, the IX Center in Cleveland. I grew up in Michigan. I was thumbing through an old issue of Tough Stuff. Raise your hand if you're a Tough Stuff reader out there. Of course, I'm not going to be able to see you raise your hand, but raise your hand anyway. And then when you're done, feel free to interact on social. I should have mentioned this right off the top. At Doug Plagens on the Twitter X platform, at Doug Plagens on Instagram as well. Looking forward to hearing from all of you each and every week as we continue to discuss various elements of the hockey hobby and the sport itself. But 1997, the IX Center in Cleveland, the National was going to be there. I saw an ad in Tough Stuff, and Gordie Howe was signing. Mr. Hockey, he was going to be appearing at the National. And back in this time, to date us a little bit, 1997, I think an autograph ticket for Gordie Howe was like $39, which seems crazy to this day that we were able to go down there and get Gordie Howe's autograph for $39 at the IX Center in Cleveland. But that's what we did. My dad and I, we drove down from Cleveland, and Gordie Howe's signing was what got us there. But walking in the door and seeing just literally an airplane hangar. That's what the place apparently was, an old airplane hangar, just wall to wall, cards, autographs, memorabilia, everything. For 12-year-old me, it was a little bit overwhelming. I'd never seen anything like that before, but I knew from that point forward I was hooked. I think I've been to about a dozen Nationals to date. Growing up, after that one, every time it was in Cleveland or Chicago, we would make the road trip over to go to it. Like a lot of people, after that, life happened. I went to school. You get into the workforce. I was traveling and moving a lot because of the nature of my job. And, the collecting took a little bit of a backseat. But that being said, when you're in the hobby, you're always connected in some form. So I always kept a watchful eye on things, and I would always pick up certain things over my travels and visit card shops when I had the opportunity and just keep an eye on things. And I'd say, like a lot of people, 5-6 years ago, you dive right back in head first. And for me personally, I tend to go back to a lot of the classics and a lot of the things that when I was growing up, I saw as just a picture or a line in a Beckett magazine. Never thought that I'd be able to attain these items as an 11-year-old. But I have the ability now to go out and conquer some of those old collecting quests. So that's kind of where I am now, the long and short of it as far as my collecting journey. And like I said, hopefully I can offer a little bit of a unique perspective here. I've broadcast coming up on 1,400 professional hockey games. I've been with the Panthers now for 11 seasons. I am plugged into the National Hockey League every single day. And as we go through this episode, I'm going to be able to talk about a few of the things that I've seen recently, how it can tie back to the hobby, and again, why things are really exciting across the National Hockey League right now. So thank you very much for having me along. Again, never hesitate to engage those social handles, like I said, at Doug Plagens on the Twitter X platform and on Instagram. And wherever you get your podcasts, you're going to be able to find Nonsense on Ice. So give it the old like, subscribe, comment, refer your friends to it, and hopefully we can all have a good time. And hey, if I say something that you disagree with, feel free to lob a message my way. And I always look forward to any kind of interaction. So looking forward to hearing from all of you out there, whether it's a question, a concern, whatever you might want to send my way. We're looking forward to hearing from you. So that being said, each edition of Nonsense on Ice, what are you going to be able to look forward to? Well, I'm going to get into some of the big NHL storylines and how they tie back to the hobby. And we'll hit a few early in each episode. On top of the storylines, I want to just talk about what I've seen lately. For example, right now you think, wow, Doug lives in a really bland place. Look at that. He's just got a curtain behind him and a vent. Well, folks, I'm in a hotel. And I'm in a hotel in Las Vegas, right here on the Vegas Strip, right behind me. I know it's just this bland curtain, but right behind me, you've got a little bit of everything. Las Vegas is right behind me because tomorrow, at the time of this recording, we've got the Florida Panthers wrapping up a 4-game Western swing against the Vegas Golden Knights, a little 2023 Stanley Cup final rematch, and the Panthers hoping to complete a 2-game season series sweep of the Vegas Golden Knights. So I'm here in Vegas because we have the Panthers and the Vegas Golden Knights tomorrow night. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing Nonsense on Ice, the maiden voyage, the inaugural edition, right here from a hotel room. On top of the storylines, like I said, I want to get to what I've seen lately. I also want to highlight the Hobby 3 stars. We talk about the 3 stars so often. We have 3 stars at the end of every National Hockey League game. It's a tradition. It goes way back. We're going to have the Hobby 3 stars. We're going to hit it in every episode. Guys to highlight. Not telling you who to buy. A little bit of a phrase here. I'm not telling you who to buy. I'm just telling you maybe where to keep an eye, because it's not always going to be stat dependent. It may not be somebody who's set a record, but I'm going to give you a reason to look at a certain name We're going to talk about some of the guys that are maybe driving the hobby, maybe some guys that are flying under the radar, maybe some guys that aren't even on the radar yet. We're going to talk about all of that when we get to Hobby 3 Stars each and every week. So again, not who to buy, where to keep an eye. We'll have that in a few moments, the first run of Hobby 3 Stars. We're also going to get some mailbag questions in. I've got some good ones this week. Too many good ones to get them all into this episode. And there were some that were so good that they may end up being full topics on future editions of Nonsense on Ice. I also want to get to a weekly observation, a weekly lesson, something I want to bring to the table that I've noticed out and about going through the hobby. And again, the hobby's more than just buying packs of cards. It's more than shopping for singles. It's more than consuming content, going to shows, going to shops, reading magazines, whatever the case may be. It's day to day. When I'm on the team plane, for example, long flight back from Vegas after this game against the Golden Knights, I'm going to be probably listening to Sports Cards Nonsense. I'm going to be probably listening to stuff from my friends at Mojo Break, friends of ours here. I'm going to be consuming a lot of hobby content that's out there. That's what I'm doing day to day. And again, we're going to talk about the different ways that we can participate. And I'm going to have a little bit of an observation each and every week on Nonsense on Ice. We're also going to have some exciting guests. And each week at the end of the show, because I do from time to time like to dive into a break. I know that's not for everybody, but it is for a lot of people. I have fun with it. I try to find break spots that are stress-free and fun. So at the end of each show, I want to find a value break spot that I'm eyeballing. And I've got one this week, and I got into it the other day. And to be honest with you, I only watched a few minutes of it. I haven't even had a chance to go back and watch the entirety of the break. The hint is it was out of Upper Deck Series 1, but I'll tell you the PYT, the pick your team spot that I went out and grabbed at what I thought was a pretty low price and a bargain and a fun little chase. We'll talk about that later on, and I want to get to that at the end of every episode. What is a value break spot to look for this week in the hockey hobby that might bring you a good card, might bring you a little bit of fun, some entertainment? Because at the end of the day, we're in it for fun. We're in it for entertainment. We're in it to find some cards that we think are pretty cool. So all that being said, that's what you can expect on Nonsense on Ice each and every week. All right, folks, some storylines to dive into. Storylines, and then we'll hit the Hobby 3 Stars, and then a little bit of an observation from me as far as the hobby's concerned. Alex Ovechkin, 900 goals. I know this has been talked about a lot. He is the first member of the 900 goal club, whether or not you can call it a club because he's the only guy in it. He started it. He's the charter member. He's the first guy to 900 goals. As far as his hobby value is concerned, and really any of the financial figures I throw your way, first of all, not a financial advisor, but any of the financial numbers I throw your way, they are from Card Ladder. Great product. I use it all the time. But Alex Ovechkin's indexes on Card Ladder, the 900 goals, doesn't seem like it really caused too much of a spike. There were obviously some sales, but the biggest spike in the Ovechkin market was back in April, right after he passed Gretzky and became the all-time goal-scoring leader. That was where the big spike happened. I think if you're out shopping for Alex Ovechkin cards, he's reached that point, an all-timer, probably top 10 in the history of the National Hockey League. He's at that point where you really can't go wrong purchasing Alex Ovechkin cards. Some recent sales figures looks like if you're in the market, if it's the arena you play in, a BGS 9.5 gem mint copy of his 0506 Young Guns, you're looking at anywhere between $1,700, $2,100 in the last handful of sales that we've seen on Card Ladder for that. Maybe around $1,000, give or take, for a mint 9 version of the card. Probably not much downward movement in the future for that card, I wouldn't think. I'd say that's probably a safe buy and a safe place to park your money long term, because what he's done is historic. Nobody's ever scored 900 goals. I don't know that anybody will score 900 goals. There are some guys in the league right now that you think maybe could flirt with that potentially. Maybe down the road somebody does. That person who the next 900 goal scorer, they might not actually even be born yet. Who knows? It's going to be difficult. You're going to have to play for a long time. You're going to have to be durable for a long time. And you're going to have to be very consistent for a long time. Probably pretty safe to say that Alex Ovechkin is going to be in that 900 goal exclusive club for a long time to come. Speaking of goal scoring, folks, storyline number 2 I want to get to this week. The Anaheim Ducks, at the time that we sit here right now, I'm recording this on November 9th. So we are a month and change into the National Hockey League season. And I just had a chance to see this team play earlier in the week. I mentioned the Panthers are on a Western road trip. They beat the Panthers less than a week ago at the time of this recording. The Anaheim Ducks are sitting in first place in the Pacific, 3 points up on Vegas, off to a 10-3-1 start. And part of the reason I think the hobby needs to focus a lot on the Anaheim Ducks, look at the last handful of years and the rookie classes and the Anaheim representation in these rookie classes. Going back to 21-22, Mason McTavish, he was a 3rd overall pick. You can pick up his young guns easily right now, under $10. Go to 22-23. They seem to identify the franchise goaltender. Lukáš Dostal's rookie cards are in 22-23 products. Again, seems like an under $10 young gun. And this could all change by the time this episode officially drops. But because Anaheim stuff's on the move and people are taking note. Lukáš Dostal, relatively affordable on the young guns. 23-24. Leo Carlsson comes on the scene. Now, he is probably the priciest of the Anaheim Ducks young stars right now. You can still get those young guns, I'd say at the time of this recording, maybe in the $30-40 range, but that seems to be moving by the hour. Leo Carlsson's had some big games lately. They slow played it with him his first couple of years, but he seems to be turning into the number 1 center, the franchise cornerstone they wanted him to be, and he's doing so in a hurry. Leo Carlsson in 23-24. Pavel Mintyukov, a pretty dynamic young defenseman that's gone under the radar a little bit. He was a high pick as well. He's in the 23-24 products. 24-25. Olin Zellweger, a very entertaining defenseman who figures to see a lot of power play time and put up some nice point totals from the back end as an Anaheim Duck. He's in the 24-25 rookie class, and you can pick up his young guns pretty cheap. Also in 24-25, though, one of the key rookies in the 24-25 products was Cutter Gauthier, and his stuff is really starting to move. 21 years old. He's fighting for the league lead in goals right now. He's off to a heck of a start and over a point a game. Even his young guns. I got one not too long ago, but you can still pick those up. It seems like in the $20 to $25 range. Again, that could change by the time that this podcast drops, and those figures are coming from Card Ladder, folks. But what it all means, the Anaheim Ducks, they're exciting on the ice. If you watch those late games, you're going to be entertained by the Anaheim Ducks. But the hobby relevance of this team in recent years, all these guys are rookies. They're Anaheim Ducks, key Anaheim Ducks with rookies in products going back the last handful of years. There's a big hobby relevance on the Anaheim Ducks, a lot of hobby tie-ins. And I think not only are they exciting to watch from a hockey fan perspective, but I think exciting to monitor because so many of these rookies still affordable and, again, in products from recent years. So, again, at the time of this recording, if you had Anaheim pacing the Pacific Division over a month into action in the National Hockey League season, then you are a pretty good prognosticator. The last of the storylines here, and certainly not least, and this is a big one to monitor, but at the time of us having this conversation right here, Connor Bedard is into the league lead in scoring. He had 2 points again today against Detroit. The Blackhawks won 5-1, and they're off to a nice start. I know it's only a month in, but sitting in a playoff spot and maybe exceeding some expectations early. Macklin Celebrini, who was the first overall pick in 24, 1 year after Bedard in 23. He is right behind Connor Bedard as far as the league lead in scoring is concerned. I had a chance to see Macklin Celebrini play again last night, and the same thought that I had 1 year ago. Mature beyond his years, franchise building block. You have to have a number 1 center to win in the National Hockey League. Look down the list. Tampa Bay's had Braden Point. The Avalanche have had Nathan McKinnon. The Panthers have had Barkov. You got to have guys that can produce offensively, but can lead your team and can take care of both ends of the ice. And Macklin Celebrini has all that and more. He is somebody who profiles to be that kind of guy for the San Jose Sharks moving forward. He's producing offensively. He's right behind Connor Bedard, who maybe has a little bit more flash in his game, maybe can bring you out of your seat a little bit more than Celebrini with some of the offensive skill. But these two guys are they're right where we probably hoped they'd be at this point in their careers. I know Bedard maybe fell under the radar a little bit or fell out of favor with some hobbyists, maybe going back a year because the Blackhawks just were down at the bottom of the standings and weren't quite having that takeoff that a lot of people envisioned. But Connor Bedard put up some really nice point totals as a teenager, and Macklin Celebrini is doing the exact same thing. Set a record last night, as a matter of fact, passed Patrick Marleau for the most goals by a Sharks teenager in franchise history. These two guys are going to be big stars for a long time to come. Their Young Guns prices, for example, very similar at this point in time. I don't think you can go wrong with either one. I know that as time goes on, we may do it right here. It's going to be conversation elsewhere. There are going to be a lot of people comparing Connor Bedard and Macklin Celebrini. I'd rather have Bedard. I'd rather have Celebrini. That's going to be a lot of the conversation. I don't think you can go wrong with either of these guys. From a hockey perspective, from a hobby perspective, I think both of them are going to be big stars in the league for a long time to come. So again, great to see two high picks from the last couple of years, two guys who are driving the hobby on the hockey perspective, from the hockey perspective, having great starts to their National Hockey League careers. So a couple of the storylines there, a few other tidbits, just things that I'm seeing as far as this last week or so. Had a chance to watch some entertaining players over the course of the last week. The Anaheim Ducks, as I said, they're very good. They're playing really well under Joel Quenneville. And had a chance to ask Cutter Gauthier, for example. Well, we'll save that for a few minutes. Tease the hobby 3 stars. But Anaheim, as advertised, entertaining. The Panthers were in L.A. a couple of days ago. Now, the Panthers won that game, but watching the L.A. Kings, it's hard to believe Anze Kopitar is in his final season. This doesn't look like a guy who's on his way toward retirement, but he's a future Hall of Famer, one of the best two-way players in the history of the sport. And I know Wayne Gretzky was an LA King. I know Luc Robitaille was an LA King. I know Marcel Dion was an LA King. Those players all had success in other places as well. But I think Anze Kopitar is the best career Los Angeles King. This is a conversation I've heard a handful of times. And when you think about the Los Angeles Kings, I think Anze Kopitar is going to be the guy that you think of long term. He's been a captain. He's won the Selke. He's got a couple of Stanley Cups that they wouldn't have won without him. He's a very important player to that franchise, and he is going to have a plaque in Toronto a few years after he's done. By the way, per card ladder, you can grab a PSA 9 Kopitar Young Gun rookie around, looks like the last sale was around $110. For a guy of his ilk, of his pedigree, seems like a pretty safe place to park $100 or so if you're looking at something to grab of a future Hall of Famer. Mentioned Macklin Celebrini. Again, saw him play in person last night. He is, as advertised, fun to watch. And along with some of the other young players on that San Jose team, great progress being made there. And I know Celebrini gets a lot of the headlines. Will Smith gets a lot of the headlines. He was another 24-25 rookie as far as the cards were concerned. But don't forget about Yaroslav Askarov. He put up a great performance last night. And from the time he was drafted in the first round, he was the first goaltender taken in that 2020 draft, 11th overall by Nashville. And that always throws people off when he's in a different uniform in his rookie cards than kind of the uniform where he's making that transition into being an every night NHLer and perhaps developing into a star. But going back to when he was drafted, people raved about his athleticism, his fundamentals. You heard people even calling him, comparing him to Carey Price, which is huge praise and a lofty comparison for somebody who would have been in their draft year back at the time. But not only is he very fundamentally sound, he's really fun to watch. And I think that's something that a lot of folks across the hockey world have begun to talk about as far as Yaroslav Askarov is concerned. Just a really entertaining goaltender, fun to watch. And again, has a really affordable rookie card back in the 23-24 products. You can pick up a young gun probably under $10 still at this point in time. And if San Jose is going to continue an upward trajectory, sure, Macklin Celebrini is going to be front and center, but if you're going to turn the corner and if you're going to make the playoffs and if you're going to make noise in the playoffs, you think you need to have your franchise goalie set, and it seems like the Sharks are going to give Yaroslav Askarov every opportunity to be that guy and be that cornerstone. So I know I've been a fan of his from the time that he was drafted. Full disclosure, I do have a handful of Yaroslav Askarov cards. I've really enjoyed watching him play. Selfishly, not when he's putting up unbelievable performances against the Panthers. Probably could have done without that one, if I'm going to be honest. But I'm going to try not to be too much of a homer here on Nonsense on Ice. But he's a special young goaltender, plain and simple. So a guy to keep an eye on. And with that, Hobby 3 stars for the week. I know I've thrown a lot of names at you, and that's probably going to be something that we do quite a bit here on Nonsense on Ice. We're covering the whole league, and we're tying it all back to the hobby. And it's impossible to just talk about one guy. There are so many great players across this league who deserve mentioning. And the other thing I want to do too, I know in the hockey world and really in the hobby, a lot of times the chase, it's a big part of the thrill, but it gets fixated on, one or two players. There's a lot more out there to look for. 3 stars in the hobby this week. I had to pick three guys I want to talk about. Cutter Gauthier specifically. Cutter Gauthier, 24-25 rookie, flirting with the league leading goals. He's going to be 22 coming up. I wrote it down. He'll be turning 22 coming up, I believe, in the next couple of months. Played all 82 last year as a 20-year-old, and he scored 20 goals last year. He's got 11 in his first 14 this year. He's going over a point a game, and we actually had a chance to speak with him prior to the Panthers game in Anaheim back on Tuesday and during Anaheim's media availability. And he was talking about the freedom that they're able to play with now and the way that that's helped them turn the corner. And the other thing I asked him, plain and simple, is if the winning that they've done early in the season, I know it's early, but if the winning that they've done has made it easier for everybody to find their game, and if that's really been able to breed a confidence throughout the group. And he said that absolutely. He said you win, it just makes everything easier, and it gives you a freedom to go out there and play your game. And this Anaheim team, they're feeling it. They're playing well. Offensively, they're feeling it. There's probably some work that needs to be done defensively. Fortunately for them, they have a goaltender that they can fall back on if they get into a situation where they're trading scoring chances. But those Cutter Gauthier cards from 24-25, I think there still are some great deals to be had on his stuff, especially considering what he's doing in the goal scoring department, the long runway he's got ahead of him. Flyers fans, I know that there are some of you that may not be big Cutter Gauthier fans. Remember, he was drafted by the Flyers, ended up not wanting to sign, not wanting to play there, and he was traded for Jamie Drysdale, and that whole thing happened. But things are taking off in Anaheim. That could end up being a trade that works out for both parties. But Cutter Gauthier, those 24-25 products, I know people are really chasing Celebrini, and there were some other names in that. But I think there still are some great deals to be had on the Cutter Gauthier cards from the 24-25 product year. Going from that to the name driving the start of the 25-26 hobby year. Ivan Demidov of the Montreal Canadiens. He's the big young gun chase. I think per card ladder recent sales, you're looking at 150 to 175 on raw young guns. Really all raw at this point. It'd be tough to get one graded, turned around that quickly for a quick sale. There might be some out there, but Ivan Demidov has superstar potential. He's a Montreal Canadian, which means that he's got a built-in following as far as that's concerned. In Montreal, like Anaheim, very entertaining and off to a great start. The other thing with these young guys that are on teams that are maybe exceeding expectations, when you get into the playoffs, that's where you get on that big stage. And playoff success takes you to another stratosphere. Ivan Demidov, just looking at some of the items here, 13 points the first 15 games. Montreal looks like a playoff-bound team, and he'll turn 20 in December, I believe, is what we have for his birthday. Ivan Demidov, still a really young guy and has superstar potential. Again, the ceiling incredibly high, and he's on a really good team that has a lot of other exciting players on it. So a good watch. And I think he's going to be playing meaningful games late in the year. I personally had Montreal come into the end of the year as a wild card team, just like they were last year. May be wrong on that one. They look like they may vie for one of those top 3 spots in the Atlantic. Again, off to a great start and pacing the Atlantic Division. Again, as I said, my day job, I broadcast Panthers games every single night. I work for the Florida Panthers. It's been a dream come true to be with this team. But that being said, here on Nonsense on Ice, we're going to talk the entire hockey world. But I am going to bring it back home here for me on this one. One of the newer Panthers, honestly, considering he's only in his first full season with the team. But Brad Marchand, folks. Brad Marchand, at this point in his career, you can sense that he's really endeared himself to the media, a lot of fans across the league. He's closing in on 1,000 points. So I think that's worth noting. If you haven't looked at the stats in a while, maybe that catches you by surprise. He is 4 points away from 1,000. At one point in time, the conversation with Brad Marchand, the conversation about him, I think you had a lot of people that maybe called him a bubble guy as far as the Hall of Fame was concerned, maybe when it comes time for his Hall of Fame case. I think he's become an absolute shoo-in. Folks, Brad Marchand at this point, like I said, 4 points from 1,000, 2 Stanley Cups. He's in a rare situation now where he's going to be beloved by 2 separate fan bases when it's all said and done. He's an institution in Boston. I was there when he made his return to Boston, played against the Bruins, first game as a Panther, back at TD Garden as a Bruin earlier this season. And it was a special night to be a part of, something he was really excited for, but something that he was very emotional about. And he's beloved there in Boston, was a part of that 2011 Stanley Cup. And he is going to, regardless of how long he spends with the Panthers, just sign that long contract extension in the offseason. It would take him up until about age 43 if he were to play it all out. He's going to be beloved in South Florida as well. It felt like within a month he'd been a lifetime Florida Panther, just by the way that his teammates loved him, the market had accepted him, and that was a rare transition to go from one side to the other of what really was one of the angriest, nastiest rivalries in the National Hockey League for the better part of a couple of years, that Panthers-Bruins rivalry, to go from one side of that to the other and make a mark like he has. And in a lot of years would have won the Conn Smythe. He just happened to, be a year where Sam Bennett scored at a historic rate in the Stanley Cup playoffs. What it all boils down to is Brad Marchand, future Hall of Famer, plus 282. I had to do a double take on that one. Every day when I look at the stats, I have to do a double take at that one. Career plus 282. I know that plus minus may not mean what it always did, may not mean the same now as it did once upon a time on the back of the hockey card and things like that. But Brad Marchand, a career plus 282. If you're looking at his rookie stuff as far as the cards go, 09-10 is the Brad Marchand rookie year. Wide variety of sales on raw Young Guns since the start of the NHL season. Anywhere between $108 and $206 is what I saw on Card Ladder as far as raw Young Gun sales. So there's a wide spectrum there. Probably depends on when you catch the auction and maybe what Brad did that day. And and obviously you're dealing with raw cards from 2009. So based on what you might be able to notice in the scans, based on condition, things like that. Something that really jumped out at me, though, it's a card from 2009, and according to the pop counts on Card Ladder, only 1,081 of those have been graded by the Big Four, PSA, Beckett, SGC, and CGC. Only 1,081 of those have been graded between those 4 companies, and 458 total gems. The last PSA 10 sale was $14.99.99. There just aren't a ton of those that pop up. So a card that hasn't been graded that much, obviously pop counts by nature were lower back then than they are now, but worth keeping an eye out for those Brad Marchand Young Guns from 2009, or really any of the rookie stuff from back then. I think, like I said, he's a guy that if you look back at this era of the National Hockey League, and you can't say this about everybody, but if you look back at this era, say the time he came into the league to now, you really can't tell the story of the National Hockey League without mentioning Brad Marchand. And that speaks to the talent that he's had, what he's meant to the sport, what he's meant to his teams, and again, just the impact that he's made on the sport of hockey and in the hobby as well. So throw some 3 stars there to mention some names, and I threw a lot at you. And if you have some guys you want to bring up, and we're going to get to, I think we have a mailbag question about one player specifically, but at Doug Plagens on Instagram, at Doug Plagens on the Twitter X platform, we will take questions about individual players, teams, whatever you want to discuss as it ties back to the hockey cards. Now, something I want to do, I want to get into an observation. Something I want to do each week. I want to make sure that we are always keeping this podcast a place where the hockey diehards and the diehard collectors can come to hang out, be entertained, be informed, chime in. I also want to make this a place where somebody who's new to hockey, somebody who's new to hockey cards, somebody who's just flat out new to cards and collecting, somewhere that all these people can come and find something they like. So I want to get to something that I think appeals to the diehard collector and something that I think can also appeal to somebody just getting into the hobby. Upper Deck Flagship. Is it the best hobby box buy in the hobby? Not just in the hockey hobby. I'm talking about in the hobby today. So, hey, I've got one right here. I've actually got 2 right here. I'm just on a road trip. I haven't ripped them yet because if I rip them, then I've got cards everywhere. And if I pull something cool, then it's tough to store it. And it's just easier to transport in full boxes. I'm going to have some fun ripping when I get home is the moral of the story here. But in each hobby box, you get 6 Young Guns. As far as the rookie cards go in the hobby, yeah, you've got the Cup. You've got the Future Watch autographs that are beautiful. You've got Ultimate Collection. You've got a lot of great looking cards from Upper Deck. But those Young Guns are synonymous with the hobby and synonymous with the hockey hobby specifically, going all the way back to 1990 when you had Sergei Fedorov with a Young Gun, for example. It's, like I said, an institution in the hobby and something that'll never go out of style. Something that also you don't have to worry about, for example, a shiny version of that coming out, a chrome version of that coming out in a few months, and then making that Young Gun less desirable because something newer and shinier hit the market. You can pick up that hobby box around $130 right now, and you're guaranteed to get 6 of those Young Guns. There's usually about 50 Young Guns in the set. You can get 6 of those in a box. For example, you hit the Ivan Demidov, and you're sitting pretty on that box. But there are always a lot of different Young Guns to chase, and that's part of what makes it such a fun product. You get a handful of Young Guns, and these are guys you can sit and wait on. Gives you something to follow. You can get on the ground floor of some of the hot young stars in the game. You don't have to worry about redemptions on a Young Gun. And like I said, you get into Series 2, for example, and you start to have some other things to chase. You've got the Day with the Cup cards that come out. So what I'm getting at is Upper Deck Flagship for the price, the bang for the buck. Is it the best hobby box buy in the hobby? I think it is. I think it might be, folks, if we're talking about longevity, history, what you can get, the Young Guns, which are always a chase. It's accessible. You've got a lot of different retail versions out there, but it doesn't feel like too much. I don't know about you, but at my local Targets and Walmarts, for example, you usually have an opportunity to get it the week that it comes out, but if you wait too long, it's gone and it doesn't keep showing up. So it's out there. It's accessible. You can get it at a hobby shop, and you don't have to pay through the roof for a box usually when it comes out. Like I said, I think $129.99 most places. I think that's what Dave and Adams has it for right now for a Series 1 hobby box. It's a great buy. And if you like sealed wax, most years, because of all the Young Guns and the variety, usually if you park that sealed wax on the shelf and forget about it, it's probably going to at very least hold its value, but it's probably going to do well for you down the road. And you just have to maybe do a little bit of the legwork ahead of time. What can you expect out of this rookie class? What kind of rookies are in it? And if it ends up being one of those classes that has some depth to it, it could be a box that you want to hold. So that's kind of my observation here. If you disagree with me, feel free to let me know. I know there are so many great hobby products out there, or just products out there in general. But as far as a high floor to the product and the cost of entry, I think Upper Deck Flagship might be the best hobby box that you can buy. That opens the door for a mailbag question we've got here. We're going to get right into it. I've got some questions coming in from the mailbag. I believe it was Leon who asked about Kirill Kaprizov. Said it's your favorite player, and these questions came in on X. So at Doug Plagens, you can always chime in there, but we'll take some questions on Instagram, wherever. Be sure to lob those off. I tend to just archive them. And like I said, I got more than I can use this week. Some were so good they might be parts of a bigger conversation on a future show. Kirill Kaprizov said it's your favorite player. Honest opinion on him. Here's where I am on Kirill Kaprizov. Signed that massive deal in the offseason. So he's going to be a member of the Minnesota Wild. So you know where he's going to be. What it comes down to with him, if you believe in the Minnesota Wild and you believe in the Wild getting over the hump and making some noise in the playoffs at some point in the next decade, because Kirill Kaprizov is going to be there for a long time. If you believe in the Wild, then go for it on Kirill Kaprizov. But I don't think it stops there. If you watch the National Hockey League every night, Nathan MacKinnon, Connor McDavid, Cale Makar, Connor Bedard's getting there. Maybe you throw Quinn Hughes in there. Kirill Kaprizov. These are the most electrifying players in the league that bring you out of your seats, that can do things at full speed that really nobody else can do. Kirill Kaprizov is one of the most entertaining players I have ever seen play in person. I have, over the last handful of years, picked up a few different Kirill Kaprizov cards for that reason. I think he is so entertaining to watch. He's right in the prime of his career. He's averaged over a point a game for his whole career. I think he's a safe buy. And if I'm being totally honest, I think a lot of his cards are still pretty cheap compared to what they maybe, I don't know. It's easy to say what they should be, but compared to some of his peers. Maybe that's because he, last year, for example, was having a Hart Trophy caliber season, got hurt, and missed a stretch of time. But he is as entertaining as it gets. You picked a great player to be your favorite player. I'm sure you have a lot of fun watching him every single night. And I think that if you're going to grab some Kirill Kaprizov cards, it gives you a great reason to watch the Wild and watch number 97 play. He is outstanding. And like I said, with the Panthers being in the Eastern Conference, I think, honestly, one of the toughest parts about working for an Eastern Conference team is that you only get to see Kirill Kaprizov play in person twice a year, because he is worth the price of admission every single night. And I think that he's a guy worth grabbing cards of. I think you asked if I consider him a buy, sell, or hold. I consider him a hold if you got the cards. I consider him a buy if you don't have the cards. And I am not giving away those Kirill Kaprizov cards, and I've got a few. So again, that's where I stand on Kirill Kaprizov. Here's one from Will, came in on X. And Will, longtime Panthers listener, shout out to you. But he asked, dollar for dollar, what's my favorite product for hockey? And you threw out a little bit of a caveat here. And I know I just went on my long talk on Series 1, or I should say just Upper Deck Flagship. Could be Series 1, could be Series 2 Extended, whatever. I know I just talked a lot about that, but you were saying what gives you the most quality hits for the least money. And there are a lot of great options out there. Something Upper Deck has done a great job of doing is keeping the cost of entry manageable to get some cool stuff. Upper Deck Flagship has some great things with the Young Gun chases. But I want to throw out one other product, because you mentioned hits. And when I think hits, I'm thinking inserts, numbered cards, parallels, autographs, that kind of potential. And you're asking dollar for dollar, bang for the buck. So Metal Universe. I am a huge fan of Metal Universe. And what's funny about this is when I was a kid in the 90s, and it's crazy to think now because we've seen what some of these old Metal Universe cards have sold for, the basketball ones specifically, but I wasn't a huge Metal Universe guy back in the 90s. And if I'm being totally honest with you, 12, 13-year-old me, the only reason I would buy Metal Universe is if I went to the store or went to the card shop and the product I really wanted to buy packs of wasn't there and they had Metal Universe. It was the consolation prize. That was kind of how I viewed it back then. Everybody might be different. Maybe there are some of you out there who used to love it back in the 90s. I didn't dislike it. It just wasn't my first choice. But you bring it to now. You can pick up a 24-25 Metal Universe box. I checked this before we started the show. Dave and Adams, about $119.99, I think is what they had it at, $119.95. Right around the same price as a flagship Upper Deck box for this year. In every box of Metal Universe, you're getting a PMG, which is a numbered to 100 or less card. You're either getting a PMG or you're getting an autograph. So you're guaranteed that right out of the gate. You're getting something that is either going to be cool, rare, or both. And then you've got, for example, those metalhead inserts, the goalie masks. Those are cool. They're tough pulls. I've pulled a couple of them. There's a big market for those. You can get the rookie in every pack. So you're getting a rookie card in every pack. So there's some added value there, a rookie base card in every pack. And there are a lot of different nostalgic elements to it. The Z-Force cards, that's a throwback to the 90s. A couple of years back, I remember hitting a Soul of the Game Aaron Ekblad card. Because I do. That's how I try a lot of hockey products, everybody. Full disclosure. I buy the Panthers in breaks. That's how I try hockey products out and see what they're all about. I got a Soul of the Game Aaron Ekblad card. So that's a throwback to late 90s basketball inserts, for example. There's a lot of nostalgia. You can hit some rarity. You get rookies in every pack. I think that Metal Universe, if you're looking hits, I think it's an absolutely fun product to get because, like I said, you're getting some of those rookies, but you're also getting some nostalgia to it. You're getting a cool design. You're getting some throwback designs. Love Metal Universe. Will, is Metal Universe one of your favorites? Chime in on the socials. Let me know. But I think we've actually tweeted about this before. I could be wrong. Advice to beginners. This is Diane on X. Diane, thank you for chiming in as well. Advice I have for beginners, especially ones who hold every card they get. Well, first of all, everybody collects differently. So if you hold every card you get, nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. There are a lot of people out there who would say that if you collect, you've probably sold something at some point. You've probably bought singles, you've ripped packs, whatever. If you hold every card you get, nothing wrong with that. Collect the way that you want. Advice I'd have for beginners, I would say the first thing you want to do is just maybe try a few products, low cost of entry products. Just open some packs, see what you like. Start with what sport do you like, and obviously gravitate toward that. And this is going to be something that I think we maybe on the next episode or the one after, we'll dive into maybe a quick little 101 for beginners kind of thing as far as the hockey world is concerned. But I think you identify the sports you like, identify how you like to collect. Do you like to pick out a few players, collect their cards specifically, maybe going to shows, hitting the dollar bins, things like that, just getting as many cards of a certain player is the way to go for you. Or maybe you just like to rip packs here and there, see what you get and hang on to it, display it however you want. Like I said, it's really up to you. Not trying to dance around your question, but I think that's part of the beauty of the hobby as a whole is that you can collect the way that you want. Here's one. This is another one of our great Florida Panthers listeners. Alex on X chimes in. Who's the greatest number 11 in Florida Panthers history? A little bit of a hobby tie-in here. And the Panthers have had some good number 11s. My broadcast partner, Billy Lindsay, shout out to him. He wore number 11 for the Panthers. Jonathan Huberdeau wore number 11 for the Panthers and had some really productive seasons in a Panthers uniform. Mackie Samoskevich changed from 25 to 11 this year. You may remember him from the 23-24 rookie card class in the hobby. Mackie's got some a pretty high offensive ceiling, folks. He came in with a lethal shot, but he's got some great wheels, great playmaking sense. He's got a Stanley Cup ring. He's had a nice start to his National Hockey League career, and to me, figures to be a guy that projects as, a 25, 30, 35 goal scorer year over year down the road. So big Mackie Samoskevich guy, greatest number 11 in Panthers history. We can't just pick one there, Alex, but I will say, Alex, I hope you don't mind. Alex has an impressive Mackie Samoskevich collection, and maybe we have him on to talk about that at some point, because he's collected a lot of really cool stuff. We're going to save some of these for the next episode. We have more than we can get to. And like I said, there were some questions that I think would be useful in maybe a topic for a show, something we spend a little bit more time on. All right, that takes us to kind of the last couple of things to hit here. I mentioned I'd get to a value break spot each week. This week, folks, because there are still Series 1 cases of Upper Deck being broken. Yep. This stuff right here. Buffalo. Yeah, I know that you're chasing Demidov. You're buying the Capitals to get Ryan Leonard. You're buying the Flames to get Zane Parekh, though it looks like he's going to miss a little bit of time, maybe a chance to pick up some Zane Parekh cards. Maybe you're buying the Blues in breaks to get Jimmy Snuggerud and Dalibor Dvorsky. Maybe you're grabbing your favorite team, whoever that may be. The Buffalo Sabres, I full disclosure, I got them a few days ago in a half case, cheap. Why? They have a young gun, and it's Noah Ostlund. He's produced in the American Hockey League. He was a first-round pick in 2022. He's a forward. So you have a first-round pick young gun, a young guy still, who's produced, who actually just had his first NHL goal a few days back, picked up an assist a night or two ago. It was yesterday. I'm losing track of time here as the Panthers are on this long road trip. But Noah Ostlund is a first-round pick, a forward. There's going to be opportunity in Buffalo. He centered the third line in their last game at the time of this recording. He played with Isaac Rosen and Jack Quinn on a forward line. That's an exciting forward line there, but he's going to get some opportunity. He's produced in the American League, and he's got a young gun, and Buffalo can be had at a really good value. And I think that's a decent chase. Plus, you get some vets. You get Tage Thompson cards, things like that you can also hit, Rasmus Dahlin. But when you have a young gun chase in Series 1 Upper Deck, and like I said, it's a first-round pick, and you can usually get the spot much lower than a lot of other teams, that's a cool roll of the dice, and maybe you get a couple of Noah Ostlund young guns, and you can stick those away for a bit. And his singles are flying under the radar too. But a guy worth keeping an eye on, and that's my value break spot of the week, is if you can grab the Sabres in Series 1 Upper Deck breaks. Shops visited this week, some shout outs. I went to 3 pretty cool card shops in the last week in different places. Beverly Hills Baseball Cards in Los Angeles. The shop owner, Matt, was a really good guy. Shop had been there over 40 years. We talked about the World Series and everything while we were in the shop, and I actually picked up a raw Tony Gwynn rookie there that looked nice. I'd never had an 83 Topps Tony Gwynn rookie, so wanted to grab something at the shop and pick that up while I was there. But really cool store. Been there for a long time. Again, it's about a block. Technically, it's like a block or so away, I think he said, a street or so away from being in Beverly Hills. But Beverly Hills Baseball Cards in Los Angeles, really cool spot. I visited my friends at Mojo Break in Santa Clara. Came home with, picked up some sealed wax there. I've shown you this Upper Deck box a lot. You're probably all just like, open the darn thing already. You keep grabbing. It'd be a mess in the hotel room if I opened that and then had to get it all back safely to Florida. The travel accommodations and the flight, it's a good situation the way that we travel, but it would be tough for me to transport my cards back and keep everything in good shape. We'll rip it when I get home, and I'll tell you all about it. But the guys at Mojo Break, whether you shop there online or you go to the store if you're in Northern California, some of the best in the business, some of the best in the world. Great hobby guys and just great guys overall, and really had a good time visiting the store. Every time the Panthers go to San Jose, I go to Mojo Break. And also in San Jose, right in San Jose, Stevens Creek Sports Cards, right on Stevens Creek Road, I think it is. I checked out that store, lots of wax, lots of singles, but I actually found myself thumbing through. They had bins of 1990s packs, like 90s and early 2000s packs. And I grabbed like some old Fleer Ultra basketball packs, 94, 95s, and I think a 92, 93 Tops basketball pack. And it was more just a trip down memory lane, and I wanted to rip for some nostalgia. And so they had a bin of just, all for $1, $2, $3 old packs from the 90s. And that was what caught my attention, and walked out of there with 5 or 6 packs of different cards from 20, 25 years ago, which was a cool trip down memory lane there. So some shops I visited this week, and obviously had a great time at all of them. Worth mentioning here on the show. And I want to hear what your favorite shops are. I want to hear what you took away from episode number 1 here. Like, subscribe, comment, whatever you want to do. If you have questions, lob them off at Doug Plagens on the Twitter X platform. Also on Instagram. Looking forward to hearing from all of you. I know I threw a lot of names at you today. I know we covered a lot. I had to tell you what to expect, but we're going to have a lot of fun here. Big thanks again to the SCN media team for having me along, and thanks to Rebecca behind the scenes for a job well done here as always. But I want to say thanks to all of you for having me along in your collecting journey. Again, shoot off those questions, concerns, exclamations, inquiries, whatever you want to send. Looking forward to hearing from all of you. But folks, we thank you very much for being here. This has been the first edition of Nonsense on Ice, and we will talk to you next time.